Aloha, everybody, and welcome to this year's D12 Diverse Dozen. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and I'm glad that you're here in the room to witness what are going to be some fantastic presentations. Basically, in about 2015, I took a trip to Alaska, and I went there with my son, Denali, and I took him there in part for him to be able to see where his name came from. And Denali is Athabascan for great one. And I like to give my kids names that kind of mean something and something that he can like aspire to be. And in any case, during this time in Alaska, I had already been living in Maui and Hawaii for some time. And living on Maui, I could see the disparity of kind of colonization and what it had done to the Hawaiian Islands, and how going from a mentality of stewardship to ownership has had detrimental consequences to the environment, to the ecosystems. And living on Maui, seeing landfills and plastics in the ocean, with the telescopes on top of Mount Haleakala, looking at space and seeing all the space garbage, it really kind of brought that into focus for me. And in any case, going to Alaska, I saw very similar things. Native Alaskans, their way and their culture kind of be pushed to the side. Lots of fur things in Anchorage and this sort of stuff. And I had a very moving inner experience, I'd say a very spiritual experience, where I just felt an energy, a presence that felt very ancient, and I guess a lot of melancholy washed over me. And it's like in my mind's eye, I saw the flashes of humanity's history and how our original contract with the planet has been one of stewardship, and how that has been, by and large, abandoned. And I felt asked to do whatever it is that I could to try to remind humanity of the interconnectedness amongst all things, and that our contract of stewardship is one that we should still try to embrace and step into, because our lives depend on it, and empathy in action can achieve many great things. And that is when I became a space environmentalist, and I kind of took on this mantle to really try to get stewardship, celestial stewardship, to be mainstream across humanity. And I'm so happy that I've been able to work with the AIAA and Ascend in putting together yet another year of the Diverse Dozen, bringing 12 voices from across the globe here to this big stage to speak to you and everybody who this reaches about a very powerful message on stewardship and environmentalism. And so glad to have you here with me as a sponsor.
Hi. Well, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Good morning. It's my honor to be here on behalf of the Office of Space Commerce at the Department of Commerce, whose mission is to create the conditions for economic growth and opportunity for all communities. We're co-sponsoring this session because it does exactly that for the space economy in at least two ways. First, it promotes space sustainability, which is obviously essential to the future of space commerce. We urgently need to take action to address the increasing orbital congestion and debris. For our part, my office is actually developing a traffic coordination system for space that will soon give you, the commercial industry, the information you need to fly your missions safely and avoid debris-generating collisions. But secondly, this event fosters greater inclusion and opportunity in the space economy by amplifying underrepresented communities and voices. Let's face it, our space workforce is going to need a lot more talent and creativity in order to meet the challenges of the future, global challenges like space traffic coordination and long-term sustainability. It's not enough to just inspire the next generation. We need to reach out to folks from all walks of life, bring them into the conversation, and help them see themselves as part of the solution, as welcome participants in the space economy. We need them to literally see women, people of color, people with different perspectives on the stage, on the screen, leading space conversations. That's what this program does. And so I salute Moriba Jah, sorry, and AIAA for having the vision to make this happen. And I'll turn it over to you to introduce our first speaker.
All right. Booyah, my brother. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Appreciate all of you. And so I'm going to ask you to bring whatever awesome, powerful energy you have to welcome the first of these speakers. And next up on stage is Nifemi Awe. So.
Bonjour, hi. Greetings to you all the way from Canada. I hope your time in Vegas so far has been as sweet as the Canadian maple syrup. Anyway, moving away from maple syrup to hopefully some more sweeter things. My name is Nifemi Awe, and today we'll be looking at Earth Rules, Space Frontier, a sustainability blueprint for our cosmic journey. You're probably wondering, okay, what's all that? What's the problem? I'll tell you. Now, the Outer Space Treaty, which has regulated our activities in space for over 5 decades, has done well, but not without its shortcomings. And of course, for a treaty negotiated right after the Second World War, it's not strange that the Outer Space Treaty has a focal lens on space for peaceful purposes and space for the benefit of mankind. But what you would agree with me is that we need a sustainable space environment to have space for the benefit of all mankind. I won't bore you with the data on space debris. You know that the more junks we have in space, the current assets in space are threatened, and also it threatens future space exploration. Now, if we're not going to be able to gather everybody into the room, like the image you see right there, to negotiate an amendment to the Outer Space Treaty, we will fold our arms, watch the years go by, and do nothing. I think not. And that's why I'm saying, how about we go one nation at a time, taking a step towards enhancing national laws to bridge some of the gap in the current Outer Space Treaty. Already, Article 6 of the Outer Space Treaty places on state actors the international responsibility for the actions of their non-state actors in space. And how do state actors regulate the activities of the non-state actors is through the instrument of laws and policies. So state actors already have laws to regulate the activities of their non-state actors. Therefore, the Article 6 mandate highlights the critical role of state actors in strengthening national space laws to foster sustainable exploration. Now, for example, the United States Federal Communications Commission adopted a first ever rule mandating non-geostationary satellite operators to have plans for deorbiting satellites after the end of their life. Rules like this ensure that your non-state actors go into space not just with the lens of space for peaceful purposes, but also to use space sustainably. In promoting sustainable practices also and incentivizing private state actors, we see the UK Space Agency, for example, recently announced funding for initiatives that are aimed at promoting and prolonging the life of satellites. Initiatives like this help the law because they promote innovation, they encourage regulatory compliance, and also adoption of environmentally friendly practices. Now, data is king, but what's unfortunate is that we have limited access to open source data on the sustainability performance of many actors in space. Now, according to the 2023 PwC Global Investor Survey, investors say that they want to know how companies are managing sustainability and emerging technologies. But guess what? They lack confidence in the reported data. A crucial piece to attaining long-term space sustainability relies on accurate space sustainability data. It's therefore also important that as you go from here, thinking about how you could enhance your country's national space laws to bridge this gap, we also incorporate within national space laws guidance on international sustainability reporting frameworks that are applicable to your private actors. Now, we've shown the gap in the Outer Space Treaty, how we could go one nation at a time to bridge this gap by enhancing national laws. If I were to conclude, here's where we'd be. Now, if you were to ask me where we should test run a pilot model for space sustainability driven through national laws, I'll tell you. I will send my lobbyist to the European Union, and here's why. It helps that the EU has an overarching legislative structure, But more importantly, the structure of the EU would allow for a variation of results, which would accounted for by the peculiarity of each member state, and thus provide guidance for many other nations to follow. Now, having said that, it is clear that through thoughtful and thorough regulation, incentivization, and international cooperation, we can navigate the challenges of space sustainability and ensure a safe and prosperous future in space. Merci. Thank you. Next up is Priyanka Dhopade. Thank you.
There are 100 billion stars in our Milky Way galaxy, and many have planets in the habitable zone. So the probability that extraterrestrial intelligence exists somewhere is high. But it seems contradictory that there's this high probability of alien life, yet no evidence of it. This is Fermi's paradox by Italian physicist Enrico Fermi. And there are several hypotheses as to why. Maybe Earth-like planets with life are just too rare, or these intelligent civilizations are just too far away to send or receive a signal. Now, disclaimer, I am not an astrobiologist. I don't look for life on other planets. I'm an aerospace engineer working in sustainability. And what really intrigues me is how sustainability is actually implicit in Fermi's paradox. Firstly, technological lifespan. It could be that civilizations self-destruct before they're able to establish interstellar communication or travel. This self-destruction could be because of unsustainable practices like resource depletion, environmental degradation, or other catastrophic events from the mismanagement of advanced technology, like nuclear warfare, for example. So resource management is really important. To ensure their long-term survival, civilizations might prioritize conservation, environmental stewardship, and efficient use of energy. But this could also mean that they limit their expansion and remain quiet to the rest of the universe. But they might also intentionally prioritize sustainability and ethics. So they might refrain from interstellar travel or communication to preserve their environment or to avoid potential harm to other life forms. And this mindset could actually lead to better long-term survival strategies. Those who achieve a balance with their environments and develop technologies to mitigate existential risks could survive for longer. But the downside is that they would be a lot harder to detect, especially if they adopt low-impact lifestyles, for example. So consuming less energy would produce less waste heat or other detectable signals. So using sustainability to understand Fermi's paradox suggests that the long-term survival and detectability of advanced civilizations really depends on their ability to manage resources and technological impacts responsibly. That sustainability could actually be a crucial factor in the success of an intelligent civilization. So now, what would such a civilization think of us if they were observing us from afar? Resource depletion, environmental degradation, check. Prioritizing resource management and living in balance with our environments, that's a tough sell when a third of our world's food, that's about 1.3 billion tons a year, is wasted, while 10% of our population still suffers from chronic hunger. 82% of our world's energy consumption still comes from fossil fuels, while global temperatures continue to rise. Historically, most of the Western world has prioritized expansionist activities. This mindset of more is better, with colonial aspirations of conquering, settling, and extracting, with little regard for people or the environment. Now, we've only been a spacefaring civilization for about 7 decades. That's a blip in our existence. But we're now already starting to see some of these patterns repeat in how we treat our space environment, from space debris to launch pollutants to life cycle emissions. For such a futuristic and technologically advanced sector that brings us so many benefits, we still seem to be on this path to self-destruction and a shorter technological lifespan. Despite there being several examples that the space sector can learn from, like the unrestrained growth of other global sectors like mining and plastics, and indigenous societies around the world who have learned to live in balance with their environments. So Fermi's paradox remains an open question. If life was so easy, someone somewhere must have come calling by now. So where are they? Maybe they're out there watching and waiting for us to prioritize sustainability and prove ourselves to be an intelligent civilization after all. Thank you. And next up, we have Martina Di Mosca.
Life is a perpetual existential crisis. This shouldn't be feared, but it should be managed. Society has sold us an illusion that somehow technology can remedy said existential crisis. How's that been working out for you so far? Power isn't residing in controlling the outcomes, but rather in our infinite ability to make choices, to choose. Those in power, though, convince you that the choice either isn't yours to make, or you should relinquish your power to them so they can choose for you. Space is happening in a way where us, you and I, and the rest of humanity is powerless. But in order to preserve the space for humanity long-term benefits, we have to practice and reclaim our sovereignty and start making those choices. Space is all around us. It's in your pocket, it's in our city, it's in our home, bedroom, and kitchen. But space is not for all of us. You see, although space technologies are integral to our life, some developing regions, like the Balkan region, still have no access to it. However, this missing gap presents a sustainable silver lining. If we do things the right way, then we can create a butterfly effect that will translate the best practices not only towards novel sustainability in our technologies, but also in other deteriorating sectors too. But how do we do this? Our way forward is threefold. Number one, capacity building. We can build capacity by reinforcing our space education, by sharing technologies and resources, and by collaboration. Just like NASA's Apollo missions inspired generations of engineers and astronauts, space education and similar novel activities in developing regions can inspire generations to innovate and bring those regions forward into the space race. Just like the International Space Station has a stellar collaboration, regional collaboration is really important when it comes to bringing a novel country into the sector and propelling it forward. Number two, sustainability. Sustainability is really important. If we put sustainability and environmentalism in our novel space practices, we can solve so many problems. One great example is our already pre-launched satellites that cover such a small portion of our territories. If we optimize said already launched satellites for our territories, we can share resources responsibly while minimizing our environmental impact. Number three, policy and engagement. The mere mention of space exploration technologies being incorporated in the Balkan region is laughable. It is unimaginable that someone like me, or really anyone, can actually have a space career. This is exactly why it is so important to integrate and incorporate and platform diverse leaders like us in space activities globally. Because we are the ones who bring back the knowledge and make things happen. We educate on why space is there to protect and preserve Earth. We tell everyone how we use space innovations daily. And we educate people how we solve problems in our community locally through those innovations. So, everyone today, we have a choice to make. Will we continue to the path of the destruction, powered with mindless consumerism, the winner takes it all mentality, and nepotism? Or will we peek under the curtain of cosmopolitanism and dismantle the elitism, arrogance, and exclusivity? We can truly make a difference, lower the barrier of entry, and create an ecosystem that's sustainable, fair, and accessible for all. But there's an even easier start than that. If you choose to follow my call to action, find someone like me, someone diverse, coming from far away with an accent, and throw that out, erase it. Instead, take a leap of faith and give them a real opportunity in the space sector. That is really important because you're gonna take the extra work, figure out the paperwork, and this time you're truly gonna make it work. By lending a helping hand, you are not only changing one life, investing in their potential, you're actually changing so many people, thousands, through them. You can ignite this ripple effect, and it can become a pivotal moment in history, changing the future of humanity. Thank you. Next up is Jose Figueroa.
Wepa, wepa. That's what we say in Puerto Rico to get the juices flowing. Wepa. Can I get some wepas? Wepa. Come on. Wepa. That's more like it. I'm glad that I'm here to share my passion with you and how we can use the power of science, imagination, and cooperation to create the world's largest rocket range in the South Atlantic Ocean. Do you know what the largest structure on Earth is? The Great Barrier Reef, over 2,300 kilometers long. Coral polyps, barely the size of rice grains, working in collaboration and in harmony over millennia, fashioned a wonder that dwarfs the world's greatest monuments. The world is captivated by the wonder of Puerto Rico's beaches, vibrant culture, and Bad Bunny. But the true engine of the Puerto Rico economy is the manufacturing sector, accounting for 46% of the GDP. Puerto Rico is the undisputed queen of the strictest US bioscience manufacturing, hosting 75% of firms making FDA Class 3 devices. Skilled Puerto Rican hands craft the very tech that keep hearts beating around the world. But why stop innovating at the boundary of our atmosphere? Puerto Rico's mastery of high-tech precision manufacture makes it an untapped force in the space economy. And its equatorial proximity is nature's own booster rocket. What if Puerto Rico could meld its well-honed skill in precision manufacture with the precious gift of its geography? I envision Puerto Rico as a marvel of cooperation, just like the Great Barrier Reef. much as diverse species build and sustain a thriving ecosystem, Puerto Rico can become a vibrant hub where different sectors, skills, and ideas can come together to create something extraordinary. Picture submersible rocket silos nestled in the Puerto Rico Trench, gliding like orcas in the abysmal dark of the Atlantic. From those obscure depths, rockets surge, then ignite, illuminating the rainforest of El Yunque, slingshot to the stars with unmatched efficiency. Just like coral polyps unite to create a structure that rises from the ocean floor to the surface, we can unite with Puerto Rico to build launch systems that stretch from the Puerto Rico Trench to the edge of space. Now, this isn't just about Puerto Rico's advancement. It's about creating a collaborative hub where nations unite to push forward space exploration. The island would be a reef of international cooperation, where diverse talents converge and tackle humanity's greatest challenges. Government industry, government entities, private industry, local communities, and academia are the varied species that help create the success of the reef. Now, together, they can build a future that benefits all Puerto Ricans and fosters global progress. Now, as the island aims for the stars, it must share equitably the fruits of its space endeavors across Puerto Rican society, fostering a climate and a spirit of unity and collective achievement. Now, the task ahead is not without challenges. It requires steadfast dedication, continuous innovation, and conservation and advancement in balance. Let us unite with Puerto Rico behind this vision of cooperation and innovation, transforming the island into a symbol of what humanity can achieve when we stand up, reach out, work across boundaries, and lift our dreams up from the ocean's floor and down from the stars. The earth awaits our collective effort. Wepa! Now, thank you, and now, Amir Gohardani.
Hello, everyone. Exactly a decade ago, I co-founded Springs of Dreams Corporation, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization with the objective of enlightening society through knowledge and education. Springs of Dreams was also set up just so we could address at least some of the current challenges that we see today that were relevant back in the day, a decade ago. In December of 2023, the Program for International Student Assessment established and reported that the students at the age of 15 were lagging in the United States behind other countries. And this is alarming because it affects the workforce growth particularly, and of course the competitiveness. So today, what can we do in the backdrop of these challenges that we see in the aerospace sector? Well, one way to think about this is to glance at a framework that has been pretty successful at Springs of Dreams. Excuse me. It consists of 3 steps. The first step is to recognize the challenges. The second step is to be having an open mind regarding problem solving as well as learning. And the third step is to optimize step 1 to 3. So in the first step, what needs to be recognized is that sometimes we don't recognize the challenges as they are. These challenges could be as simple as learning difficulties. And not just recognizing them is not fruitful for the industry and the space sector as a whole. When I talk to middle school students, they're very enthusiastic about space-related topics. But I've observed over 2 decades that their interest sometimes diminishes as they grow older. And sometimes they attribute this to math phobia, science phobia, and some difficulties with topics such as physics. And today we need to send a signal as leaders to these students that you don't necessarily need to be a traditional rocket scientist or an astrophysicist to be part of the space community. In fact, the space sustainability domain welcomes people with diverse perspectives, including astrobiology, sociology, and law. For the second step, what needs to be recognized is that we should be open to problem solving and learning. Different learners learn differently with different learning modalities. And just recognizing that can help us tap into uncovering this challenge of looking at problems differently. And what, in detail, what that does is to uncover the curiosity they have. With the uncovered curiosity, you can now look into a problem solving that is unprecedented, like before. And with that, you can bring on new solutions that were not previously available. The third step is to really take this and optimize and enhance it as much as you can. We have successfully delivered this framework at Springs of Dreams, and it had paid dividends to the learners. So in summary, what can be done right now for the space sector is to welcome different perspectives, people from different contexts and different educational backgrounds. So we can incur some level of synergistic effects that can help propel the space sector of the future. I'd like to thank you for your attention. I also like to thank Dr. Moriba Jah, Caroline Emmert, AIAA, and NOAA for this opportunity. Thank you very much. And next up is Kim Macharya.
Good morning, Ascend. Hi, I'm so happy to be here with you all today. My name is Kim Macharya, and I'm going to share a little bit about my journey into the world of space environmentalism and how it's shaping my thinking right now. So, about 6 years ago, I entered the exciting world of space environmentalism, and it was kind of by accident. I was just very, very eager at a time to have a job in space, any job in space, and I landed an opportunity at a space debris startup. And that whole concept of space sustainability was so new to me. And as I dove into this new world, I thought, what in the weightless Wild West is happening up there? And how can the work that I'm doing help to resolve the different potential conflicts and such that can arise in this environment? And so, as I dove into the world of space environmentalism, I began sharing everything that I learned of as many communities as possible. I did a lot of education and outreach work across the country. I speak to students all the time. And the students, when I mention my work in space, they start to think about astronauts, they start to think about rockets and astronomy and stars, but they don't think about satellites. They don't think about the fact that space impacts countless aspects of our daily life. And every year as I enter more and more classrooms, the students are just asking for the same foundations, the same questions. And so I believe that it's now time that we start to broaden our approach to outreach. And I think one way that we can do this is by targeting and involving folks who are part of the working class more so into the conversations that we have about the future of space science. Right now, as I go to most space conferences, I don't tend to see the folks who are per se in building out the rockets and such, truck drivers who are helping transport rocket components and satellite pieces. We see the folks who are leaders in our industry, but I think it's really time for us to create forums and spaces for everyone to gather and have a conversation around what the future of space can and should look like. recently I began facilitating these gatherings called climate cafes. And climate cafes are these beautiful experiences where people from all levels of the sustainability community come together to share their emotions around climate change, to share their thoughts on the direction that we should all be taking to take our world forward and protect our species. And these gatherings have allowed for folks who would frequently never come into contact with each other to have deep, profound conversations on what the future of our world could look like. I've seen new ideas emerge that have actually been implemented by companies that are operating today to work to make our world a better place. And I think it's time that the space industry start to consider new ways by which we can gather folks and rally them around the cause. And I think space sustainability is one of the best causes that we can get folks to buy into. Back in the Apollo era, there was this notion of glory as one of the key drivers for why people should care about what's happening in the world of space. But I believe that the Artemis generation cares way more about community, about taking care of one another more so than they care about simply achieving glory for one individual nation. And it's time that we tap into that, tap into what the world is craving and seeking. And so I believe that companies should start to launch forums where we have a place to share these ideas, to begin to educate folks on why space matters, how it impacts our lives on a daily basis. I believe it's also time that we start to clearly showcase ways by which folks can enter the industry and start to engage in this exciting world. Most people view space as being this elite, elusive world, and I know that that is not the case. There are so many unique entry points popping up across the industry, and folks are simply looking for guidance as to how they can take advantage of these opportunities and contribute to this exciting field. And not only that, I think it's time that once we've help to educate and engage folks, that we truly empower them by having these gatherings where folks are able to come and share their thoughts and feelings. And then I think by doing that, we can secure new ideas that'll help us get more public buy-in and be able to fully leverage the power of space, the influence of space, to make our world a better place. Thank you all. Up next, we have Isabel Moreau.
All right. So this is where we are right now, on the only spaceship that naturally sustains life. And how we act as a crew of this spaceship is a difference between our extinction and a legacy for future generations. My name is Isabel Miro. I founded Space Debris DAO, an organization that incentivizes space safety and sustainability. Previously, I served as a captain and search and rescue boat driver because I really believe in the value of preserving life and humanity. This taught me some lessons that I'm here to share with you today. First is that navigation is key. When you start your journey with just a 5-degree deviation and you move quite fast, you will miss your target by several miles. Now, the space economy is moving quite fast as well. Launch rates are steadily increasing, and we expect a $1 trillion industry by 2030. But many forecasters do not consider that space debris could spoil this growth. Now, currently, we are replicating the same economic linear systems that have caused irreversible damage on Earth in space. And space debris is just the first symptom of doing that. Now, our challenge is to create a new kind of economy that brings together sustainability and profitability. Yet, space is a blank canvas for us to rewrite our history and a future that we can forecast. At the Institute for Legal Transformation, we develop a curriculum for legislators to develop legal guardrails towards envisioned future scenarios. Thereby, we can help to shape the future that we aspire to reach. So we must not make policies right now for the space traffic that we see today, but for the space traffic that is to be expected with the current launching rate. In a 10x thinking economy, we also need 10x thinking policies. So how can we adjust our course away from pollution towards a thriving space economy that we envision? Albert Einstein once said that you cannot solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it. Now imagine that we would not see ourselves as separate groups, but as human beings, all made from the same stardust, sharing a common fate on the spaceship Earth. On spaceship Earth, there are no passengers. We are all crew. And we must not trade the well-being of this crew and our ship for short-term economic gain for individuals. Now, if you want to gain in the space economy, you must learn to maintain first. Maintaining Mothership Earth is mandatory. This consciousness enables us to balance stewardship with economic viable exploration. Indigenous people have long implemented this awareness by preserving Earth's ecosystems. Now it's time to extend this kind of awareness into space, using space applications to monitor planetary health, improve climate change resilience, food security, and everything that we can do to support the maintenance of spaceship Earth while exploring space together. So if we have this awareness, this new mindset, how will that help us to collaborate better on our shared spaceship? Now, decentralized autonomous organizations are technological tools that enable global collaboration using blockchain's technology. We can make shared decisions on shared interests, resources, and goods by using blockchain's immutability, transparency, and verification benefits. Blockchain technology provides the technical infrastructure to democratize global governance. So, at Space Debris DAO, we provide economic incentives for satellite operators committing to space sustainability standards. And I'm here to ask you today, are you part of our crew? If you like, you can scan this QR code you can see over there and find out how you can get involved. Thank you very much. The next up is Symbol Mushtaq.
Hi, everyone. Today, I would like to talk about a crucial aspect of space sustainability that has been essential since the dawn of space exploration. I want to draw your attention to a potential future scenario that should concern all of us. A future where space, the final frontier, could become a contested zone rather than a source of discovery and exploration. In recent years, the trajectory of space technology has been driven by the pursuit of strategic dominance. This trend is alarming because it threatens to transform space into a domain of conflict and competition. The militarization of space is happening now. Nations are taking pride in developing defense technologies under the guise of national security. Astronauts, when they return from space, they speak of overview effect, seeing no borders from space and experiencing a profound shift in perspective. But will this be the same experience if military bases from, let's say, China, Russia, US, or any other country mark their own territories on the moon? Yes, we have treaties that state space cannot be owned by any entity. However, is there any treaty that stops, for example, China from forming a settlement on the lunar surface? Given that their space program is led by the military, these stations will essentially be military bases. The establishment of space forces and the development of kinetic and non-kinetic weapons are not only responsible for creating a dangerous cloud of space debris, but are equally capable of disrupting global peace and potentially escalating the current geopolitical tensions, turning the speculations of a new Cold War into a potential reality. Let us reflect on history. One of humanity's greatest scientific achievements turned into the development of atomic bomb, which led to unprecedented destruction and loss of life. This creation forever changed the course of history, illustrating the dire consequences when scientific progress is driven by pursuit of power rather than the quest for advancement and exploration. Albert Einstein, whose theories laid the groundwork for the atomic age, was deeply troubled by the use of this work for destructive purposes. He spent much of his later life advocating for global peace. His vision for a world where scientific advancements serve humanity rather than destroy it is much more relevant today than ever. Imagine a world where nations vie for control of skies, where satellites critical to our daily lives are targeted and destroyed, and where the dream of peaceful exploration is overshadowed by the threat of war. This is not the future we want, but this is the future we are heading towards if we do not act now. Our current international agreements are not enough. They were designed in an era when the challenges we face today were unimaginable, and the ambiguity of foresight has led us to our current predicament. Space debris, satellite blinding, and potential for space-based weapons require new, robust, and comprehensive agreements. We need a renewed multilateral framework that includes all significant spacefaring nations to come together. One that explicitly prohibits destructive anti-satellite missile testing and addresses the issue that may arise from the power dynamics among nations with current counter-space capabilities. The space policy domain must actively incorporate and amplify the voices of our youth. Our fight with adversaries will never end until we redefine borders and authority not as enemy lines, but as opportunity for cooperation. Space holds the key to unlocking this potential. We stand at a crossroads. Today's decision will determine if space remains peaceful or becomes a new stage for dangerous conflicts. Creating new agreements in the aftermath of setbacks does not signify advancement, but rather perpetuates the same pattern. So, by advocating for new treaties, promoting transparency, and ensuring equitable access, we can steer the future of space exploration towards a path that truly benefits all humanity. Thank you. Next up, Alma Obalfeng.
Slow movement has been defined as a cultural shift in the immediate requirements of any given project, to which may be the market needs or the political needs, to the longer term requirements, which are considered to be fair, clean, and good for everyone. And they also connect with the culture and the people. Now, my introduction to space was not slow. It was via an ambitious project to launch the first communication satellite in sub-Saharan Africa. And this was done in record time. And because of that, we were able to boast of two things: ownership and national pride. However, this feeling of pride soon dissipated because it became clear that there was more and more of a disconnect between the average citizen and our sense of achievement. The African space sector is growing. And of course, this is very exciting, with a projected revenue of close to $23 billion by 2026. So a lot of states are getting involved, and perhaps hastily so. So it seems almost counterintuitive for me to suggest that they take it slow. But the slow movement is not really about pace. It's about connectedness and intentionality. So in the context of space in Africa, the slow movement can be implemented using 3 principles: sustainability, mindful pacing, and minimalism. Sustainability in this context refers to making a very informed distinction between what is possible and what is even available in terms of funding and technology, and what is necessary. Mindful pacing refers to connectedness, having a very human focus for your space endeavors. Africa has the youngest population in the world, with the majority of sub-Saharan Africa being below the age of 30. So you ignore this demographic at your own peril. Space projects should find a way to connect with this demographic through training, skills development, education, and real job opportunities. Minimalism, in this regard, refers to the reduction of the resources you need to support your activities, but without compromising on your business objectives. So in trying to implement this, an African proverb comes to mind. It says, "A single bracelet can never jingle." So minimalism is not about being cheap, nor is it about doing less. It's about doing more together. So there's more room for international, regional, and even national collaborations on the continent. I also believe new space models can drive the African space sector because they cut out a lot of the fluff. So, for instance, when a government says, let's embark upon a national satellite project, New Space would respond, with all the existing satellite capacity over the African continent, have you considered operating and perhaps plugging into a federated satellite system? Or if a government wants to make massive investments in ground segment infrastructure, New Space would respond, have you considered the leaf space model? You see, you don't have to own everything or indeed anything to be successful. You simply have to leverage yourself. You simply have to position yourself to leverage everything. The future of the space sector in Africa is undoubtedly bright. And through the implementation of both New Space and slow movement principles, this growth can be based on what is necessary and what actually resonates with the people and builds a unique identity for the continent. Thank you. Next up, we have Carolyn Overmeyer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carolyn Overmeyer. I am the Chief Engineer for the Orion program for Lockheed Martin Space. Now, Orion is a human-rated spacecraft that's going to take 4 astronauts to the moon and back as part of the Artemis. And it's my responsibility to ensure that the technical integrity of the vehicle is such that the crew can perform their whole mission safely. And I need to get the crew back safe. So when I was a little girl, my father and I used to sit in the backyard at night and we would hunt for satellites. And it was so cool when you'd see one and you'd track it across the night sky. Well, we lived about a mile from the front entrance to the Johnson Space Center. And my father had just been selected for the astronaut program in the 7th astronaut class. And he would tell me, I'm going to be flying a spacecraft up there with those satellites. And I was a little concerned. What if one of those hit you? And he would just laugh at me and say, it's fine. There's plenty of space up there for everyone. And he went on to fly 2 very successful shuttle missions, STS-5 and 51B. Well, that's not the same now. Now, It's not uncommon to look up into the night sky and see a whole string of satellites cross over, to see hundreds of blinking satellites all staring down at you. And there's 25,000 objects in low Earth orbit that we're tracking right now, 25,000. And that's between the space of 300 and 1,000 kilometers. We affectionately call it the soup. Out of that 25,000, about 8,400 are operational satellites. Some of that operational satellites are a little questionable. They don't have any maneuverability. They don't have propulsion. You know, they say fly, be free. I say fly, be debris. And I call them rat sats because they will eventually eat a hole in my solar array. Now the rest is space junk. It's old rocket bodies, it's dead satellites, it's hardware from separation events, and it's all those fragments from collisions, from anti-satellite testing, and from explosions of satellites that were not passivated correctly. Just like the second stage Long March booster that broke up in low Earth orbit, July 5th? Now we have 150 more pieces of debris to track up there. And it's only getting worse. They say in the next 2 decades, we might have 100,000 things up there in low Earth orbit. And my vehicle has to cross through low Earth orbit 6 times during a mission. 6 times. It's going to have to go play Frogger to get through low Earth orbit. And it's only getting worse. And we're doing nothing to change that. We always say it's too hard, it's too expensive. Now, Orion can handle some micrometeoroid and orbital debris strikes. It's got thick coatings around its tiles. It's got shielding on its critical systems, including its heat shield. It's got redundancy and it's got maneuverability. And it's even got the Space Force tracking it to make sure that we don't have any collisions and we can perform evasive maneuvers. But eventually we're not going to be able to do that. We're not going to be able to get through low Earth orbit safely. Now NASA just recently came out with a report, a sustainability report that talked about the cost-benefit ratio of cleaning up low Earth orbit. And it talked about how you can do some small things and make a very big difference, such as starting with your design, making sure that we can passivate, making sure that we have propulsion so that at the end of your life, you can deorbit quicker, not 25 years, not even 5 years, but pretty much immediately. We also want to make sure that we can track things. There was in February of 2024, this year, there was almost a collision with a NASA time satellite. Everyone thought that they were miles apart or kilometers apart, but they were actually about 33 feet apart, 10 meters. Thank God we didn't have that. There would have been more debris up there. But I challenge you, if you have influence into policy, if you have influence into design standards, that you make sure that we include the ability to keep our low Earth orbit, have less junk. And next up, thank you guys. And next up, it's Dr. Olga Stelmark-Dresser.
Hello, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank Moriba Jah and IAA for having me here, and also for having arranged this truly diverse panel discussion. It's for the first time that I'm surrounded by so many excellent female speakers without having to talk about the diversity in the space sector. This panel is a true testimony that women can lead the change and their voice matters. My name is Dr. Olga Stanmak-Drescher, and I Chief Policy, Legal and Government Relations Officer at ExoLaunch. My today's talk will be on the importance of responsible behaviors in space and the bridge between design solutions and transformational actions each stakeholder undertake to create positive impact. We live in the time of extraordinary opportunities for space exploration. We live in the time when space exploration is no longer the privilege of just few spacefaring countries. We live in the time when space is open for all. But how long can we continue benefiting from this? Many novel technologies, capabilities, and STEM to business models are championing space activities these days. They unlock a number of very impactful opportunities. While the growth of space economy is an absolutely vital indicator highlighting its undisputable value, it also shows the risk at stake when non-sustainably revolutionizing the way space actors are conducting their activities. The speed and complexity of developments have impacted the way we act and also have outpaced our system for cooperating and coping. Technological advancements are going way faster than an associated legal architecture, and development of enforced solutions to serve as an action plan, including the mandatory rules of reference for preserving the long-term sustainability. This requires full accountability for space actors that have to be undertaken, unconditional consciousness, reciprocal responsibility against the others, including towards the future generations. While all space actors must be equally accountable irrespective of their nature, size, level of maturity, heritage, and capabilities, we cannot talk about identical requirements to be posed to them. The efficient legal regime requires a holistic approach covering all space actors, while on implementation and execution levels, foreseeing a differentiated treatment that considers the capabilities of diverse actors and efforts each stakeholder should invest into a sustainable future of space environment. We lack a clear roadmap, one for all, that would streamline the efforts to be taken to ensure a safe, sustainable, and secure space environment. With an absolute minimum set of responsible behaviors to be identified, we should distill the scope of actions for desirable and therefore expected behaviors, directing the actors to aim higher and commit more. We have to outline the gap between the actions taken if pursuing the minimum and desired pathways to particularly highlight the deviation in consequences from such activities. Shall we do more or shall we do better? Shall we go beyond or shall we go more in depth? Shall we wait for the global mutually inclusive commitment or shall we start acting already now within the scope we envision that is necessary? The activities we conduct today have the long-term consequences, including for access to space and operational environment. The more demanding we are when conducting space activities, the more guarantees we have for space to remain operational in the long run and used for the benefit of all. There is no reason to wait for the mandatory rules or the worst-case scenario to happen to start acting now and to start acting responsibly. As space sustainability cannot tolerate any more delays, and to find a consensus around the proportionality regime engaging and committing the global stakeholders might take longer, it is high time to be proactive, setting the benchmarks and shaping the best practices based on transformational ethical considerations and patterns of responsible behaviors, and bearing in mind the consequences space activities will have if not conducted responsibly. We always have an opportunity to put us in a better path. The backbone of responsible behaviors is in each one of the stakeholders. Thank you so much for your attention, and I am delighted to introduce the next speaker, who unfortunately couldn't join us here in person today, but he conveyed his video message. His name is Salman Ali Tabdawala.
Good morning, everyone. This is Salman Ali Tabdawala, and even though I'm not with you all in person, I'm still excited to connect virtually and share some thoughts that are close to my heart. My fascination with space began as a young child, imagining endless possibilities it held. See, for me, space used to represent boundless adventures and untapped potential. But as I grew and entered the professional stage of my career, I encountered a reality far different from my childhood dreams, one that is marked with conflict and competition. And this begs the question, if space is truly the final frontier, can we find a way to maintain peace among ourselves as we expand into this endless territory? Space is often referred to as the new gold rush. However, without rules, it risks becoming the Wild West. Lawless, dangerous, and chaotic. And the rapid colonization of the low Earth orbit is just a start that adds layers of complexity to this problem. And to add to this, many satellites are dual use. They can serve both civilian and military purposes, which further blurs the line and make matters significantly worse. For instance, during conflicts, space-based internet services have proven to be critical, showing how private companies can now influence global tensions. Moreover, sophisticated military technology relies on space technology for navigation, communication, and surveillance. Imagine the strategic advantage in an all-out war if one could target these space assets. And so the world came up with anti-satellite weapons, which then further exacerbate the problem we are facing, threatening the very stability and security of space operations in the times to come. And this stark reality underscores the urgent need for effective space governance to prevent catastrophic conflicts. This might sound like an exaggeration, but a single misstep amidst heightened global tension could escalate into a large-scale conflict. And you know what this reminds me of? The Great War, which we now know as the First World War, and the Cuban Missile Crisis, where, fortunately for us all, cooler heads prevailed. I know the threat in space is not nuclear, unlike the Cuban Missile Crisis, but it is no less critical. Because space isn't just about satellites and scientific exploration, it's also about our daily lives. GPS navigation, weather forecasts, and global communications. All these services and many more, they all rely on satellites. Imagine losing them overnight because of unregulated space activity. Our world would simply plunge into chaos. I do realize that completely demilitarizing space is a utopian dream, especially given its military roots from the Cold War. But we can at least strive for practical solutions. What we need are robust regulatory frameworks that are inclusive, binding, and ensure equitable access to space for all. And achieving this is not as daunting as it may seem. After all, we do have historical precedents like the Antarctic Treaty, the Montreal Protocol, the Kyoto Protocol, and many more that have already laid the foundation and provide frameworks for international cooperation. However, to make this vision a reality, we must commit to international solidarity and trust-building measures. Strong-arming each other would not help. What we need is to be able to work together, transcending national interests for the greater good of humanity. And as difficult as it may seem, and even impossible given the current world dynamics, but I say this, we owe it to ourselves and to the future generations to at least try. So please, do not wait for a crisis to force your hand. Act now, play your part, and ensure that space remains a realm of wonder and exploration and not that of conflict and destruction. Thank you.
Aloha. So, anyways, I wanted to just briefly say thank you so much for being a part of this D12 session, and it's meant a lot to each and every one of our new D12 cohort. Clearly, we have a lot of work that we still have to do when it comes to actually achieving space environmentalism and sustainability. Gaia, Mother Earth, is a system of systems. Land, ocean, air, and space are all interconnected. Our original intergenerational contract as a species is one of stewardship, and I would just ask each and every one of you to think about what stewardship means to you and to spread the word and choose empathy, because that's the hardest thing that we need to solve. So thank you very much and have a great rest of your Ascend conference. Thank you.